So this one's a doozy. Ross Dellinger all over it. 16-team playoff is what we're going in college football because the SEC and the Big Ten want to, and they don't care about your feelings. They're going to do it. Mario Cristobal makes a great point. Head coach of Miami. Granting spots makes 0 sense. Football's never been about gifting. It's about earning. Jim Phillips, who I don't think is that good of a commissioner over the ACC, was like, hey, what happened to fairness in college football? Is it just the SEC has more money, so they get to have automatically 4 teams and the Big 12 gets 2? That's the model they're proposing. 4 teams for the Big 10, 4 for the SEC, 2 for the ACC and Big 12, and then 3 automatic qualifiers with a group of 5. The group of 5 really gets screwed here. We're going to have to bow to the will of the SEC and the Big 10. But I don't understand what the Massey rating had the Big 12 for the last 5 years at the second best conference in college football. What? Because we have less exposure? Because we have less money? That means that we can't get as many automatic qualifiers? It's one more feather in the cap of unfairness in college football.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous. And when we're on the path towards what we're going towards in terms of how these conferences are going to break down, that's not a good deal for the Big 12. I know a lot. I talked about this last week on my show, and there's a lot of people in the comments saying, well, we only got 1 team in the 16 team last year, so this is a good deal for us. It's not. Let the meter run. Let's let this play out. And, maybe next year we'll only have 1 team, or maybe the year after that. But in a couple of years, it's going to be the Big 12 and the SEC, and then it's going to be us and 50 feet of crap. And now you want just 2 teams in there, and it's like, I don't even know what this phenomenon is called. It's like the chicken or the egg thing, right? Because then people are like, well, you only had 1 team in there last year, and it was a pretty good year for the Big 12. And it's like, yes, that's because the bias is already there. The bias is already in play. We're still battling uphill against this. I wouldn't take this deal at all, and I don't think the Big 12 would. But it just takes away from the integrity of our great sport. It's the whole point of this playoff, when it was introduced as a 4-team playoff more than a decade ago, was to earn it on the field. And here we are, just moving less and less, or moving farther and farther away from that ideal. We're now trying to do as much as we can to not earn it on the field. I don't mind the whole little, playoff structure, the mini playoff structure they put in before the playoffs with these conferences and their last bids. That one's fun. It's not again, that's just moving away from the ideals that were what the college football playoff was based on. At this point, you might as well go back to the BCS.
It wouldn't. Maybe I haven't thought about this. This is just off. This is off the dome. So this could be really, really idiotic. I don't hate your conference having an 8-team playoff at the end of the season, which would be fascinating to me. Right now, BYU can't complain. Now, Baylor, who's red hot, actually has an opportunity, right? Because Baylor was a different team their last 9 games compared to the first 3. Or Texas Tech, who became a different team their last 4 or 5 games. Now unless they play Baylor. Now those schools have an opportunity in an 8-team playoff, 8 versus 1. Hey, we can go beat Arizona State. That's freaking awesome. And now we get to the end of this.
Yeah, thing. The Baylor situation. Wouldn't you want another shot at Colorado? We played them earlier in the year, the Hail Mary and everything. We weren't the same team. I'd want another shot at them, or BYU, or vice versa. Yeah, I like that.
So I don't hate,
a lot, but.
We because there was the round robin Big 12 thing where you make one misstep. That was the problem with the BCS. You make one misstep and you're out. You're done. You're Oklahoma State against Iowa State. You're screwed. You're out of the. And people are like, well, you're diluting the regular season. No, you're just giving an elite team an opportunity to make one mistake, but still prove they're the best team in college football. Yes.
Well, yeah. Well, in this case, to actually support your point here, if that's what you want to do, the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, you make this play-in kind of tournament. You are, I guess, on paper, you're diluting a little bit of the regular season, but half the teams are out. Half the teams are out of it. So you need to still earn your spot. It's not like we're playing 6 weeks and then 6 weeks of everybody else playing each other. It's not that. It's 8 or 6 or however you want to do it. I could see that.
Okay, well, and you think about it, there are teams that play 3 games in the college football playoff, 4 maybe if you're in that play-in bracket, and you play your conference championship game. You can play 5 postseason games. I believe my math might be wrong there. It could be 4. So my case here is 3 games in your conference tournament. Now the eighth best team, and in the SEC, the eighth best team is kind of ass cheeks. It's Vanderbilt at this point.
Yeah.
And in the Big 12, the eighth best team any given year is like, shoot, that's Texas Tech. And they're still pretty, that's Kansas State. And they're still pretty, or that's Colorado. So
Kansas last year, the run they were going on to the final week. Yeah.
And now you've built 8 teams all have an opportunity, like college basketball is regional. Everybody's got at least a fighter's chance. Get down to the conference championship game. You're playing for home field advantage. The winner gets home field in the playoff. The loser still makes the playoff. Now you're represented by eight schools from the Power 4, and then you can sprinkle in 2 if you want to from the Group of 5 or whatever, however you want to do it. But I don't hate the idea that I've come up with right now.
And you know what else it helps too is. And even in the structure that we have right now of the 12-team playoff, it hurts this thing. But what you are proposing actually props up the conference championship game. Right now, I'm not saying they're worthless, but with the new 12-team playoff, it's as useless as it's been in a while, right? Because, the ACC, both those teams were going to get in, right? To take a lesser conference. But this way, you've built it up. You've won 2 games to get there. Like that instantly props up your Big 12 championship game, props up the fan bases. Now you're into this thing. You want to travel, much like you would for a conference tournament in basketball, or actually probably more akin to like, a first round matchup in the NCAA tournament in basketball versus an Elite 8. Now you've got people in. They've been talking about this for weeks. They're all on board. They're traveling. They're watching on TV. They're donating money. Like that's what your Big 12 championship game becomes at that point, because like there's still a lot on the line. Like you said, you're playing for a home field advantage in the playoff. You feel like you're halfway to where you want to be. It's still a big time championship. It's like going to the Final Four, right? You raise a banner, Big 12 champions. I think that props up your own conference's championship game more than any of these other playoff structures do.
Namely when the 7 seed plays the 3 seed. And everyone is like, and that's any conference. When now Ole Miss got to prove, hey, we were hot. Tennessee got to prove we deserve to be in the college ball playoff. You find equity in inviting 2 teams from each conference instead of 4 from one, 5 from one from the other. Now you get to see a level playing field amongst the Power 4, which has separated itself far and away from the Group of 5. I made this case on a show last week, and I'll keep it tight. Western Kentucky, in 10 years ago, Western Kentucky had 5 guys that could have started at the SEC. Out of 22, it doesn't amount to much. You're gonna get, it doesn't amount to much. Today, they have 0. Why? Because those 5 guys now have the opportunity in the transfer portal to leave. So the rich have gotten richer. The best of college football is as good as it's ever been because of that. So with that in play, I'm sorry, Group of 5. I don't need to see more than 1 or 2 teams in there. I just don't, because But also to that point, I mean, it does allow a Western Kentucky to still have a pretty good shot. Like if all the conferences are doing this, and you've got a conference champion in there, and let's just say, a team from a lower conference, let's just say it's San Diego State. Right. And they've beaten a couple of teams. Maybe one of them's ranked in the Mountain West, and they lose to Boise State in the conference championship game. Now they all of a sudden have some recognition. Now you have a resume where it says, well, they won back-to-back playoff games. They won by 4 touchdowns. They beat this team, UNLV, that we thought was really strong earlier in the year, and they were a candidate for this spot. So it does help out those kinds of programs. And I'm not in this fantasy world where a bunch of guys are staying at Western Kentucky because they have a shot to finish 4th in Conference USA and win the conference rather than going to the SEC. But it might make that next guy think a little bit longer of, well, you know what? Why don't I play some big games here and then see where I can go next year rather than this year? So I think that actually does help the playing field a little bit. It's not going to change the power at the top, but it does give a legit shot to other teams that wouldn't have it. And it says to the guy, Jim from Grosbeck, he's like, well, dilute the regular season. We can't go back. The regular season's not what it was. Clemson made the playoff last year despite a crappy regular season. That we cannot go back. So why not raise the stakes of the postseason? Make the postseason stronger. If we cannot go back and make the regular season matter anymore, the BCS era mattered at its peak. We can't.
Yeah, it's either this or go back to 4 teams.
Yeah, Oh, so now we just
if you want the regular season, then I get that. But
we raise the stakes of the postseason in some sort of appeasement now that the regular season has certainly been diluted. What can people find of your stuff?
YouTube, wherever you find your podcast, usually to your team every day. At Real Cam Stewart on Twitter, at Lock.Baylor. I don't have a Blue Sky yet. Don't have a Threads yet.
He's on Truth Social, ladies. This has been, it always will be, Locked On.
Only.
Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Plenty of fish. A crossover with Baylor and Dose Grande.